All right, welcome back. So now let's design a spiritual or religious book. So if you go to the exercise file, O7 practical lessons, you see inside O710 spiritual book. So we are going to design that. So I'm going to create a cover size, maybe 6 by 9 inches. Then resolution, we just leave that, and then at the end I was supposed to use the RGB, but I'm going to fix that later, and then you're going to see the difference just like we did before between an RGB and then CMYK mode. So let's continue. So I'm going to paint that black. So of course Alt delete or Option delete to paint it black with a foreground color. So I'm going to bring out the ruler, of course, and I can, or maybe I'm only using an image, so maybe I don't need the ruler. So what I need to do is the title, the subtitle, the author name, and I'm going to use 3 fonts for this one. So, and I have only one image, and when you're dealing with religious books, you always want to import, use an image that has to do with maybe the celestial bodies, or maybe space, something like that. They are very good, so you can find any good image on Pixabay, and just let's open up this one in Photoshop, and of course we are going to drag it and drop it, and we can resize it, Control T or Command T, and resize. So now I'm going to right click and I'm going to turn it to a smart object, so that it's easy for me to change the image anytime that I want. So the title, the works of your hands, I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to select the type tool, and I'm going to paste it, Control V or Command V, and I'm going to give it the font. Let's double click that and then change the font, and then increase the size. So maybe we should just stick with the New Times Roman font, and then click OK. So I could double click to change the text to maybe white, or I could select from the image. So like I said, always select from the image, and then if it doesn't look good, you can always find a color very close to the color in the image. So the other one is ants. I'm going to increase the size of this one, make it bold, and of course blow it up to maybe 195. So I'm going to make sure they actually, it's as wide as the first line. So now I could change the color of this one. So the first one, I'm going to leave it white. Then I'm going to sample color from this image. So I'm going to sample this particular color. It looks maybe a light version of that color. So when you select a color like that, you just find a light part of that, and you can see it looks, we can come back and correct that later. So now I have the image, I have the text, the title. I can reduce the opacity of this to make sure that the text actually pops. And let me change this color. It looks kind of, yeah, maybe something like this. So just continue to sample a color from the image, and we can come back and fix that later. So now I'm going to add the additional text. So the subtitle, through him all things were made, without him nothing was made that has been made. So I'm going to paste it there, and I'm going to resize it to maybe around 9, 10, or 10 looks okay, and I'm going to put a break somewhere here, and of course double click, change the color to white, and I'm going to drag it, and I think it looks okay. So I'm going to use the character panel to reduce the spacing between, like so, and that is done. So the move tool, and I can drag it to make sure it's centered, and that is done. So now under the title, so I'm going to duplicate that, Control J or Command J. I'm going to drag it down. So, and I'm going to reduce the size, and now I'm going to put a backspace and make it one line. So I want to repeat the same text, and you can see it's not clear because of the background image. So what I could do is to I'm going to make that one line. So I'll come back to that. So now let's copy the author name and then the New York Times bestseller, and I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to select the type tool, and I'm going to paste that, Control V, Command V. Then let me enter the name of the author manually. Double click, change the font to the Bibers Noir or Bibers Regular. I don't know if it's pronounced Bibers or something like that. So I'm going to increase the spacing between the characters and move. So I'm going to paste the other details and double click and reduce the size. And I'm going to use the other font, which is the Allegria or something like that, and reduce the font to maybe 8. Double click that and check. So now I am going to double click that, and I think that is fine. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this, and I'm going to add maybe, let me reduce the opacity, and so that the text can be more pop more. I'm going to reduce that to maybe about 53, 60. So I'm going to add hue and saturation right on top of the image, and let me see if we can maybe and let's see if, so let me add some. So I'm going to add some drop shadow to make that kind of pop a little. So the opacity maybe, and the distance and then okay, it looks so much better. So you can see before and the after. So because of the background, you have to make sure that the text actually stands out. So sometimes you can always add a drop shadow, and so this is almost done. Let me, okay, I'm trying to see if the hue saturation made any difference. So maybe I can delete that. So I'm gonna save as, so I think I like the way it looks, and the background, it's not looking good, and that's because, like I said, it's I created it as a CMYK. So, and I'll show you the difference between the CMYK and then the RGB, just like we did before. So, and I think it's a good thing that I made that mistake. So just for you to see the difference. So now I've saved, and it's in CMYK color mode, and you can see what it looks like. Actually, it looks, you can see what it looks like, and you can see because of the colors are not that wide compared to RGB, it's looking, even though it's looking better in Photoshop, but when you export it out, it looks kind of dull. But you can see, let's change it to RGB, don't flatten it, and see the difference. You can see the difference in when it is RGB, you can see it's actually popping. Now let's put this to maybe increase the opacity to maybe around 52. You can see the difference, and if you save this, you're going to see that actually looks so much better. So always use RGB, but sometimes you can always design and then see, even though RGB is always the standard. Well, I'm talking when you're working with print this time around. So of course, if you're working with ebook, you should always use your RGB. But if you're working with print, you can always RGB and then compare. But most of the time, the RGB is so much better. So I'm moving things around. So the end, maybe change the color a little bit since it looks so much better now. So let's, the lighter color, I'm gonna gear something like this, and you can see it looks so much better. And then, or I can maybe add a particular color to it. So, and that looks so much better. So now you can see with the drop shadow, it looks so much so I'm going to group the text together and center them. Okay, you see they're all centered now, and so now I'm going to save over the previous one, and I'm going to save now maybe 2, and I'm going to save it as a JPEG so that we can compare both versions. So the one with the CMYK, so if I double click, and you can see what it looks like, it actually looks so a lot. And then you can see the one with the CMYK, you can see the one with the RGB. So RGB all day. So, well, like I said, sometimes you can always compare both of them and see. But of course, if the publisher or maybe the person who owns the job, if you're a freelancer, wants CMYK, you should always give them CMYK. But as a professional designer, I always recommend the RGB. So this is the end of this video. So in the next video, we are going to design a fantasy book cover. So now we are getting more we're designing something that's getting a little bit more complex and complex. So a fantasy book cover design in the very next video. So I hope you like this video. On to the next video.